And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That is right, it is time for Coffee Talk Live, and you can find me on YouTube for the live portion at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat is where I am there, as well as fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, unless otherwise specified, as we get ready to dive in here and see what is going on in the world today. Being accompanied by Dusty today. Dusty, for those of you who can see, in the chair behind me, keeping me company and ignoring me like she always does. And for those of you who cannot see, naturally, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable so that I can keep up or help you to keep up with the conversation, as it were. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in the live session. I see Helter is here today, and Dragon, and Brian, and Max, who says it's the United States of Ukraine / Israel. Well, more so Ukraine than Israel, and more so Ukraine than Taiwan also. D'Lo is here. Boogers is here. Max says we need to tar and feather every last member of Congress who waved a Ukrainian flag over the weekend. Oh, no. And Antonios is here. Says, good evening from Athens, Greece. Hey, glad you could make it. Carrick is here. David is here. Says he's glad he caught a live while building his own off-grid home. Absolutely. And Antonio wants me to pet Dusty. Well, Dusty's asleep, but we'll see how she acts later. And Fluke Man is here as we get ready to dive into, of course, what is going on? What is going on in the world today? Too much of one thing and not enough of another. A lot of distractions, a lot of things to keep you mesmerized. Bread and circus, everyone. And H12 is here. Glad you could make it. Keep you mesmerized and keep you hypnotized and discombobulated as one thing rolls into the next, and the big news of the day that seems so earth-shattering 3 days from now, most people can't even remember it happened. Can't even remember it happened. Now, this is something that happened. It happened Friday, didn't it? Right during the live stream. Just wanted to confirm that this did indeed happen. Itself on fire at the Manhattan courthouse. And there's a few interesting snippets from this. There really is. First thing is, this article and every other article I've read talks more about the trial than this guy emulsifying himself. All right. So it mentions it here. It starts here in this paragraph, but by the time you get down here, and I'll roll down a little bit, they're not talking about it anymore. The whole rest of this article, which is like 20 paragraphs, is talking about Donald Trump's trial. I wanted to hear about dude setting himself on fire. No, we can't do that because USA Today, because News Network giving you all the news that's fit for them to program you with. So here we go. A man threw conspiracy pamphlets into the air and set himself on fire Friday outside the courthouse where former President Donald Trump's hush money trial is taking place, critically injuring himself and horrifying onlookers. He's dead, by the way. So this says it was updated 5 days ago. They didn't update it enough because he didn't, unless it's down in here somewhere, he did not survive when he got to the hospital. Police identified him as Max Azzarello, 37 years old, of Florida. The victim was seen dousing himself with a liquid around 1:35 p.m. in a park across the street from the Manhattan courthouse. Witnesses told USA Today the shocking incident took place in full view of news cameras shortly after a full panel of 12 jurors and 6 alternates was seated for his hush money trial. You see what I mean? Already, and they're not even done talking about the guy emulsifying himself, this Max guy, and you're already laying into the trial and you have to emphasize hush money trial by changing the coloring on the letters here. Witnesses said the victim tossed flyers into the air before dousing himself and setting himself ablaze with what appeared to be a lighter. 6 first responders suffered minor injuries trying to put out the fire and provide medical attention, the New York Fire Department said. Basically, because they were already out there. That's why this fire was put out so fast. And this is what I think is interesting. First and foremost, number one, what's on the flyers? What's on his propaganda flyers? I can't find anything on it. I did see a picture of him with a sign, and I can't repeat exactly what was on the sign, but it seemed to imply that Biden and Trump are working together. Okay, but all that aside, whatever his problem was, he set himself on fire, which is pointless. There's number two. You're not making me feel guilty by setting yourself on fire. I'm not hot at all. Number three, where he set himself on fire and why it was that emergency first responders were so quick on hand. He was in the designated protest area. And I'm like, this is what it's come to. You've seen this building up since the Obama administration. These designated protest zones that you can go and exercise your right to free speech in, but not anywhere else. No, we're going to put you in a box and you can protest in that little box. And somehow America has accepted this. Somehow America has accepted this. Makes no sense to me. Max says he looked like Marv from Home Alone after being burned. Oh, yeah? I didn't see it. I didn't watch the video of the emulsification. I've seen enough of that because, that's just the kind of thing that you might see in Asia. That's something that I have seen done in Asia, where somebody will pour gasoline on themselves and light themselves up. It's unbelievable. And Sven said he was sick and no one spoke truth to him. And that could be. Don't know what his problem was. Don't know what his manifesto was. You'd think that would be the top story. You would think it would be. And then from this point on, they drivel on about the whole trial. The whole rest of this is them going on and on and on about the trial. A judge advises Trump. Social media comes back to haunt another potential juror. Third and fourth alternative jurors chosen. I thought this was an article about a guy burning himself. Trump team trying to get a woman who attended Women's March struck by judge. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, if for those of you who can see, look how far down this goes. Look how much was added to this article. It's probably an AI generated article anyways. But still, can we get to the freaking point? Can we get to the point? Can we talk about what happened? Helter says the guy did not accomplish anything. No one will remember his name in a few weeks except his bereaved family. And that's the cowardice of suicide, is that you burden friends and family with your death and you prove nothing. It's the same thing with the hunger strikes. You want to go on a hunger strike? Go ahead. I'm not hungry at all. I'm fine. If I want something, I'll go get it and eat. I'm not the one starving. You are. And then the skewed view of what a hunger strike is nowadays anyways. And I've talked about this a few times because there's been a few groups of college kids and stuff that are like, I'm going on a hunger strike because free Palestine. And they go on a 5-day hunger strike. And I'm like, that's not a hunger strike, sweetheart. That's a fast. If you don't eat, if you have a designated end point that I'm going on a hunger strike for 3 days to protest Palestine or protest Israel or whatever the hell you're doing, that's fasting. It's actually good for your body. You're not hurting yourself at all. Hunger strike is when you don't eat for so long, you wake up in a hospital with an IV. That's a hunger strike. Okay, that's how that works. Not I'm gonna go on, and then the next one was, oh well, we're gonna hunger strike for 5 days because the last one was only for 3 days. Okay, if I even can trust that you're not going home and eating anyways, you're a bunch of snotty college kids. I don't believe you. I don't think you have any integrity. Seriously. An unknown nose reminds us that Denver sucks. Okay, unknown. And Booger says, wasn't the last person before this guy that burnt up a Tibetan monk? That could be, because you do often see that in Asia. Monkey says, article in a nutshell. Yeah, poor guy, but this trial is very important. And the trial is bullshit. And I've talked about, who they should have asked about hush money for sleeping with someone? Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, because this is something that he's done. I think the last one was $800,000 in hush money, contracted, paid to someone he had an affair with. 800,000. Why isn't he on trial? Why isn't Bill Clinton has done this before? He's done this exact same thing. As I've pointed out, it's not illegal. This is the only time in history I am aware of, and I could be wrong, but that I'm aware of, where there is a trial for hush money. You cross every T and dot every I. They're typically ironclad for a reason, because it's legal. Because it's legal. And like I said, I don't see Billy Boy on trial. He paid more than Trump did. Unknown says left is a cult. They view everything through the cultist lens. And Brian says virtue signaling college kids. What else is new? No kidding. But like I said, I ain't hungry. I'm fine. I'm fine. Max says, what are the points of the trials? Even if he's convicted, he can still run in November. That is true. Well, it's a distraction. One, it's supposed to make him look bad in the media, which is backfiring, because we've talked about this. It creates a situation by which more people identify with Trump because they see the construct of lawfare, as it's referred to now, whereby the justice system is being weaponized against him to try to make him look bad or to try to catch him up. And anybody who's been to court, never felt screwed or slighted, knows exactly what that feels like. Oddly enough, and I don't remember what trial it is, but just to cement this point, my wife, again, loves watching those true crime docudramas. And one that she was watching, I believe it was Saturday, it was these couples that were getting killed, raped and killed. All right, college kids. And this was decades ago. It was probably 20 plus years ago this happened. And they thought they had the guy, but he was already in jail, so he couldn't have done it. So what they formulated, this is what the detectives and the DA came up with. It sounds absolutely insane. And I'm going to see if I can remember to find the name of that trial, and maybe I can put it here for tomorrow so people can look it up if they're curious. That his brother and friend went out and murdered another couple to cover for him. So yeah, his brother and his friend are sitting around going, hey, dude's in jail and we don't want him to get in trouble more, so let's go rape and kill us some college kids so that it'll look like it ain't him. And the DA actually jailed these two, held them in jail for 3 years looking for evidence. 3 years. And then while going through the evidence they already had, they discovered there was a semen sample on the blanket in the car where the two bodies were found. And they hadn't noticed that before. So they tested it and it didn't match anybody. It matched another guy they had in jail in another state. Turns out it was him, who was in jail for that, because he was a serial sex offender. So It's like they're rabid dogs. They latch onto you and they screw you. They messed up these people's lives. All right, one guy was already in jail. He did something, whatever. These other two men did nothing. Sat in jail for 3 years. 3 years while they tried to create evidence and couldn't do it. You just can't trust anybody. Sven says Clinton doesn't pay hush money to the women he assaulted because he would be broke. There are so many. Yeah, I bet. And Flukeman says, there was a hunger strike, I think it was in the 20s, for women's rights. One person was imprisoned and force-fed. I think one person starved to death. Well, during that whole women's suffrage thing, it was they would go on hunger strikes when they were arrested because the judge would reverse their decision to put them out of jail. And you saw this in the United States and in the United Kingdom. To put them out of the jail to save them the embarrassment of having to deal with that and deal with the media, until they came up with the idea of giving them a feeding tube when they pulled that shit so they could keep them in jail, because the protesters in women's suffrage were actually extremely violent. Molotov cocktails, blowing up cars, smashing out storefront windows, pelting police with rocks and bricks. They were very violent. And then you put them in jail. Oh, but I'm a woman. Oh, I'm not going to eat. And then they'd get released because the judge would feel bad for them. And then they'd go out and do the same shit again. And that's why they started giving them feeding tubes. Look it up. I see Cyberjack Sr. is here. Glad you could make it. And Joseph says, why isn't Biden's son on trial and incarcerated? Because he's Biden's son. And Monkey said, isn't NDA practically hush money just without payment? You could say that. You could say that. But yeah, that's where we're at. You can't trust these people. You can't trust the justice system, judges, detectives. I mean, who comes up with a concept like that? Who does that? It's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. When I was listening to it, I was like, that's their idea. This is their idea for how it is this crime was committed. Oh, we did it for our buddy who's in jail so that people wouldn't realize it was him. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And Max says, I think judges shouldn't have a political affiliation. No, they should not. And it is very political. The position of judges is very political. And I think that is a huge problem. It is a huge problem, and you often see them checking boxes in their decisions. I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. I've worked with too many, especially when I was with JJA, and I've had to deal with too many, especially in family court. And I've worked with case managers and conciliators and bailiffs and others affiliated with the court, social workers, probation officers, lies, lying about every damn thing. Ruining people's lives. And we're supposed to, but it's one of these professions where they demand you trust them. How dare you? That's a judge. How dare you? That's a conciliator for the court. But they're lying. They're dishonest. They're shady. Something's wrong. You can't say it. You can't say it. Can't say it. And Sven says that he received a bonus from a contractor if they signed an NDI before the interview. Wow. Oh, wow. I know, huh? I know. And here's some news that you all already knew. Articles is key for they finally kicked it in. Finally kicked it in. There it is. House voted on a potential TikTok ban. I don't care about that. House lawmakers have once again passed legislation that could lead to a nationwide TikTok ban. Why are we not looking at the package? It's over here. I see. The House has passed a $95 billion package providing foreign aid to the Ukraine, Israel, and Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific region, they basically mean Taiwan. A fourth bill in the package addressed other House GOP priorities, including sanctions on Iran and a measure that could lead to a TikTok ban. The legislation will be combined in a single amendment as it moves on to the Senate, where Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said lawmakers will begin voting on it Tuesday. Doesn't mean it's going anywhere. One point I want to make right here, though, where they're talking about sanctions on Iran as if they aren't sanctioned into oblivion anyways. That's going to change. I don't have an article pulled up on it, but they fired missiles at U.S. installations this morning. It's not even hitting the wires yet, but they fired missiles at U.S. installations overseas this morning. So I mean that, yeah, they're just looking for another Desert Shield situation out there. So there we go. After months of resisting putting a foreign aid bill on the House floor, GOP Speaker Mike Johnson joined with Democrats to advance the measure to Saturday's vote. The bipartisan move, I hate that word, drew the ire of some hardline members in the Republican Party who are supporting an effort to oust him. Johnson's job is safe for now, as Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said she won't yet move forward with a motion to vacate. Blah, blah, friggity, frickin' blah. Who cares? And then it goes on to whine about TikTok. Should they ban TikTok? You're thinking about that now. When Trump wanted to ban TikTok, you wanted to kick him in the ass for it. And Sven reminds us, of course, that NDIs are a common process. Yes, they are, because companies don't want you revealing secrets. And Max says, where does the money come from? Aren't they trillions in debt? Well, they borrow ahead on tax money they expect to receive. So they're borrowing from themselves, which they should not be able to do, in a manner of speaking. That's just an oversimplified explanation. It's a lot more complicated than that, but that's basically what it boils down to. They're borrowing from themselves. And, this makes it sound like this is passed. It really isn't. House voted. Big deal. It's not broken all the way down yet. And like I said, sanctions on Iran. I mean, does Iran have elbow room to move as it is? Do they have the room to move as it is? Haven't we already sanctioned them into oblivion? And they don't really give a damn. But they've attacked us now openly. So, yeah, there's that. Dragon says, while the average American citizen is struggling, our tax money is going to other countries. Well, if they'd stop wasting the money, and that's always been my argument. We could probably, I'm live. There it is. We are 23 minutes and 14 seconds in, and I have just gotten my notification that we are indeed live. Thank you, ScrewTube, for letting me know. Oh, well, it's earlier than normal. And a couple of times last week, I didn't get a notification at all. So it's a little sooner. I'll give him that. But yeah, misused and misappropriated funds. They spend it on all sorts of garbage. They waste the tax money. They don't care because it's not theirs. They can always just take more, make more, and take more. They're bad stewards of your money, and it's a damn shame. Drubal is here. Glad you could make it. And Joshua says, since you're talking about the new foreign aid package, what's your opinion on the colossal national debt? It seems like a financial doomsday is coming because of it. Yeah, there's no way to. It could be fixed. It could be fixed, but they're not going to. And they like holding that debt over our heads because then they can pretend to be facing a government shutdown all the time, which is not really ever going to happen. If that had happened, I'd be surprised if it lasted more than a couple of days if they did. It could be fixed if you stop wasting the money. Stop throwing the money all over the planet. Stop wasting it on bullshit programs. We don't need to fund Transmogrified Violin Players Association. Just throwing something out of the hat there. Just craziness. A lot of the stuff that money is spent on is garbage. If everything was voted on an item at a time, instead of building these packages, and this is why this happens, you want to vote for just the Ukraine, you put something for just the Ukraine. they don't do it because they know it'll get thrown out. Nobody wants to send any more money there. All this funding that goes overseas and all of these programs that are wasted, funding gay rights programs in the Middle East and Africa. How about we mind our damn business? This is why they hate us over there. And it's not us, it's our government. It's not the American citizens that want this shit. You know, what are you going to do? But if they could do that and they could stop and then they could refresh the economy by, since they don't need to spend all that, giving people a damn break on their taxes instead of raising them all the time. We could operate on half of what we take from people. And then those people could build their lives back up and live comfortably like we used to once upon a time. An unknown knows wants a government shutdown. Yeah, that'd be nice. And, you know, I could make all those suggestions. I could go on and on about how to fix the public school system, how to fix the problem with tax and infrastructure, how to fix the border, how to fix the situation with these dinosaurs that are in political office that have been there for decades and done nothing. Bernie Sanders, I'm talking to you. Nancy Pelosi, I'm talking to you. But they're the ones that have to vote for that to happen, and they're not going to. It's not going to happen. Hasdrubal says they have local elections coming up in Ireland, and that their wife just spoke to a politician who said they want to increase the population to 10 million from 5 million through mass immigration, not even trying to hide it. Wow. You don't need more people there. You don't need more people there. And if you have a problem with the population, then you need to thank Great Britain for it, because it's their fault, because they did that shit during the Jacobite uprisings. Tell me I'm wrong. Or is that Scotland? Well, mostly Scotland, right? Jacobite uprisings. I'm getting it mixed up. But I know that populations were dwindled considerably and that the UK is really at fault. Or Great Britain more specifically. And 2 Jacobite uprisings, correct? Hasdrubal? There were 2. Now, this is something that was glazed over in the media, and I just wanted to throw it out there. I wanted to talk about it last week, but I didn't have a chance to get to it, and that's dear old, sweet old, lovable old, reliable old, hairy-legged Uncle Joe. Making up stories again about his uncle this time. Making up stories about his uncle. Have you seen this one? NBC News article, Biden mischaracterizes his uncle's disappearance during World War II. Mischaracterizes, that's a good way to put it. He lied. How about that? President Joe Biden on Wednesday mischaracterized the circumstances of his uncle's death during World War II as he lambasted former President Donald Trump's comments about the military. Quote, he got shot down in New Guinea and they never found the body because there were a lot of cannibals, for real, in that part of New Guinea, Biden said during his remarks, invoking his uncle Ambrose Finnegan. Finnegan, he had whiskers on his chin again. However, U.S. military records about Finnegan's death do not mention the aircrafts being shot down or discussing cannibalism. Quote, for unknown reasons, the plane was forced to ditch in the ocean off the north coast of New Guinea. The record says both engines failed at a low altitude and the aircraft's nose hit the water hard. The 3 men who were killed in the crash were not found, according to records. But and I believe this is not the first time that he's made remarks about Dad crashing in the or his Uncle Finnegan crashing in New Guinea. Yes, you know, Dr. Livingston, I presume, chopping his way through the jungle with a machete, outrunning pygmy cannibals who finally wrestle him to the ground and gnaw him to death. I mean, unbelievable, the stuff that this guy comes up with. Flukeman says, running this on my phone and laptop, selected to show all messages, but some don't appear. One device, but not the other. Really? We're doing that again, huh, ScrewTube? Joshua says they're concerned that a loaf of bread will one day cost a wheelbarrow full of dollars. Aha. Like Germany after World War One. And Dragon says that explains it all. The cannibals ate Joe's brain. It was a tiny snack for them. And Helter says Joe Biden, a legend in his own mind. Exactly. Exactly. A legend in his own mind. And he sits there, and I wonder, is it dementia, or is he just that convinced that people believe whatever the hell he says? You know what I mean? He's like somebody's like funny in the head grandpa who tells the kids all kinds of weird stories that didn't happen, crap he made up or stuff he saw in movies. It's like he was eaten by giant ants, being ridden by cannibal pygmies. That's right. And they have machine guns mounted on top of the ants. It's perfect. Flukeman says messages didn't come up on their phone either. His own message. All right. I don't know what's up with that, guys. But I wanted to share that from last week. This is something the media kind of really glazed it over like it didn't happen, like it was no big deal. Oh, you know, silly old Biden. He got confused. He got confused. And Brian wants to know who was the worst duo, Biden and Harris or Biden and Obama. Biden and Harris is worse. Obama was bad, and it has led to extended problems because he sat in office and played the race card, and it's opened up Pandora's box as far as that's concerned, because we were as a nation moving away from that, and it's brought us back to it. It's brought us back to it, and it's worse now than it's ever been as far as so-called race relations within the United States. It's kind of his fault. It's kind of his fault. But really, it's sort of a trio between them because Biden was part of Obama's administration. He was useless then, and he's useless now. Has Drubal chiming in on the previous question. He says it went from 8 million to 4 million after the famine. Malthusian policy pursued by Whig English government. Thank you for the confirmation. I figured I knew I was getting it mixed up because the Jacobits was Scotland, and he says he doesn't hold it against the Brits now. Unknown Knows says it's Alzheimer's. My relative had it. Did the exact same thing, remembering things like being on a cattle drive. Yeah. And Monkey says reminds them of the Simpsons episode where Abe was talking nonsense in Mr. Burns' office. Well, all he wants is more Matlock. Just give him more Matlock and he'll be all right. That would be Grandpa Simpson now. What do you want? More Matlock. Always more. I'd rather, Matlock for president. I would have voted for Matlock. Not Biden, though. Biden doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Biden doesn't care. Sort of political authority. He's a career politician. He doesn't really care about any of us. It's all an act. As in the case with most politicians, they don't really give a damn about anybody. They tell you what they think you want to hear. They pander to fringe minorities and act like it's a majority. They spend your tax money and they lie to you. This is just something I thought was interesting. And this is from Insider. And it says Beijing's half marathon winner stripped of the medal after 3 African runners let the Chinese athlete overtake, according to the video. And I thought this was very interesting that this went on. It makes you question a lot of other athletic events. So organizers of Beijing's half marathon last weekend have stripped He Ji, China's top long-distance runner, of his gold medal after an investigation concluded that the three other runners had purposely slowed down to let him win the race, says reports. Video footage from the final moments of the 13-mile race shows Kenya's Robert Keter and Willie Mengat and Ethiopia's Dejin Hailu, if I pronounce that right, in front of He. Mengat appears to gesture to the Chinese runner for him to pass ahead. Robert Keter then waves at He to overtake and signals to the other two African runners to pull back. He crossed the line at 1 hour, 3 minutes, 44 seconds to take the gold medal and a $5,500 prize. The African trio were just 1 second behind in joint second place. How do all three of them get second place if they're counting it down to microseconds? In a statement seen by The Guardian, the organizing committee said, "We deeply and sincerely apologize to the world and every part of society that we did not discover and correct the mistake in time at this race." No, what happened was there was film footage of the hand signals, and you had to admit that you rigged the marathon. And that's why I'm showing this. Flukeman says he'd like to ask Obama, because his mixed race, does that mean he's a victim 50% of the time and racist the other half? Good question. He didn't hide being a mulatto, and I don't know why they stopped using that term, but he didn't mind being mixed before he was running for president. Then all of a sudden he was just black. And Unknown Knows says, never let the left forget they elected a stage 4 Alzheimer's patient to run the country, and they're trying to help keep him there. Brian says in that same episode, Mr. Burns asked Abe, can he get more than 5 seconds without go more than 5 seconds without humiliating himself? And Joshua says they remember when a Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns made a dog executive vice president. Maybe we'd be better off if we did that. And Monkey says China's trying to be like that. The mainland Chinese are superior to others. Yeah, it reminds me of the Nazi Olympics. And Unknown Knows says, I wonder if the Africans were forced to let the CCP win, but they made it obvious to the public as a form of rebellion. It's possible. And for those of you who can see, I'm going to run the clip here real quick. I'm not going to turn the audio on. And this is just a short snippet. It's like 40 seconds. And you can see it. I'm not going to put on the audio because you won't understand that it's in like Mandarin. But if you watch, here it goes. There's the runners. And if you watch there, you can see them. And now, like I said, the only reason they've admitted it is because they were caught. They were caught. Because if you read further down here, now we have one guys has come forward and he says, quote, who was it that said this? Mengat says, my job was to set the pace and help the guy win, but unfortunately not achieve the target, which was to break the national record. So Mengat says that he was hired to be a pacemaker for this runner. And it goes on to say he, who is 25, has broken China's national marathon record twice in the past 2 years, ranked 74th in the world by the men's marathon, according to World Athletics. All 4 runners' results have been revoked, and they will be stripped of the trophies, medals, and bonuses associated with the race. The other 2 runners have not admitted to being admitted to being pacekeepers. And Monkey says that the video clip caused a hiccup. Still working on that. I might do another impromptu live sometime this week just to try to work some more of the bugs out. This is going better than it was a couple of weeks ago, but it still has room for improvement, and I'm still trying to dial it in. And get the video and audio as clear as possible for the purpose of the live stream and for the people that attend and get involved in the discussion. Unknown Nose says CCP is superior at bribery. Yeah, that must be it. And it's not even, I mean, the top prize was $5,500. It's not even that big of a deal. Shouldn't be that big of a deal, but they want to look superior. They want to appear to be superior. And this is one of the ways that they do it. So they got 3 African runners. One of them admits that he was hired now as a pace setter, that it was never an intention for him to win. Although apparently it looks like he could have. It looks like he could have overtaken or stayed ahead of, anyways, the Chinese runner and been in first place. They probably would have found him hanging in his hotel room if he did. But hey, that's China for you. We're willing to rig a marathon, a Beijing half marathon that's like a local thing at that. It's not even a big deal. It's not even a big deal marathon. Who gives a shit? Apparently someone in the Chinese government does. Because yes, they're so superior. This story is coming out of the UK. This is a BBC story. This next one's coming. Reasons get into. BBC story again. Children used as guinea pigs in clinical trials. Something that's come up before, but now there's proof. And why this is important is because governments do this all the time and get away with it, and people still trust governments and the medical industry. And they shouldn't. They should be very careful. So, article reads, the true scale of the number of medical trials using infected blood products on children in the 70s and 80s has been revealed by documents seen by BBC News. They reveal a secret world of unsafe clinical testing involving children in the UK as doctors placed research goals ahead of patients' needs. They continued for more than 15 years, involved hundreds of people, and infected most with hepatitis C and HIV. One surviving patient told the BBC he was treated like a guinea pig. I want to point something out, okay? I do believe the one surviving patient may be the only surviving patient, because I've seen something on this before. The trials involved children with blood clotting disorders when families had often not consented to them taking part. The majority of the children who enrolled are now dead. Documents also show the doctors in hemophilia centers across the country used blood products, even though they were widely known as likely to be contaminated. A shortage of blood products in the UK in the 70s and 80s meant they were imported from the US, and high-risk donors, such as prisoners and drug addicts, provided plasma for the treatments that were infected with potentially fatal viruses, including hepatitis C, which attacks the liver, resulting in cirrhosis and cancer, as well as HIV. One blood product known as factor VIII was seen to be highly effective for stopping bleeding, but also widely known to be contaminated with viruses. Luke O'Shea Phillips, 42, has mild hemophilia, a blood clotting disorder that means he bruises and bleeds more easily than most. He caught the potentially lethal viral infection hepatitis C while being treated at the Middlesex Hospital in central London, which was administered because of a small cut to his mouth in 1985 at the age of 3. Documents seen by the BBC suggest he was deliberately given blood products which his doctor knew might have been infected so he could be enrolled in the clinical trials. Doctors wanted to find out how likely patients were to catch diseases from new versions of heat-treated factor VIII. Though he had never been treated for his condition before, Luke was given heat-treated factor VIII to stop his mouth from bleeding. Yeah, incredible. Now, these are people who have taken Hippocratic oaths. These are people, like we were talking about earlier, amongst the groups of professionals that you're not allowed to say anything bad about. You can't criticize them. You can't say anything bad about doctors or nurses or teachers or social workers or judges or law enforcement officers. You're not supposed to. Oh, because they're out there busting their ass for you. Oh, you don't trust doctors? And this isn't that long ago. Trials in the 70s and 80s that went on for 15 years. So till what, 90, 95? They experimented on these kids, and almost all of them, if not all of them, are dead. I remember reading something about this before. I think that one person they interviewed is the only survivor. And think about this. You're talking about pediatricians doing experiments on behalf of the drug companies with stuff they know is contaminated, just to see what happens. Just to see what happens and just to get a kickback. Let that sink in. And because people love to look at stuff like this and say, oh, well, that was all in the past. This isn't that long ago. And you look at stuff like the Tuskegee trials. Oh, that was a long time ago. Or the birth control trials in Puerto Rico that was without people's knowledge and consent. Oh, that was back in the 70s. That was the 60s and 70s. That's no big deal. The government wouldn't do that now. Or the irradiated breakfast cereal that was fed to orphans in the United States. Oh, the government wouldn't do that now. Are you sure? Oh, you can trust doctors. Are you sure? Again, these were pediatricians doing this to these kids, and they're all dead. All but really one. They're all dead. They killed these kids. And we're supposed to trust them? And that story, it really stuck out for me because of something that just happened with my wife at the VA not too long ago. Let's catch up a couple of comments here. Dragon says, nothing will change when this gets swept under the rug after the media attention is gone. Yeah, that's every story. Fluke Man says, China are pretty racist. Darker skin you have, the more discrimination. Not to say whites will be ignored. And to have foreigners beat a Chinese on their own soil is not allowed. And Unknown Knows says there are more mad scientists, in fact, than fiction. No kidding. And Joshua says, no matter how long ago a story was, human beings are the same. And Helter says, another case of government releasing information on a heinous operation they committed to the public long after most, if not all, of the decision makers are long gone. And Brian says, they were going to a urologist for years and was still having urinary problems. Yeah. And Fluke Man says, doctors busting their asses for us, really? So it has nothing to do with the fact that they get paid lots of money. No, that's not it at all. And you can't say that. No. But this is what happened with my wife, okay? And tell me if anybody here has to go to the VA. If every time you go to the VA, do they recommend that you see their psychologist? Because every person I know who goes to the VA, they always get a recommendation to the psychologist, right? And they do it with my wife every time she goes. And so this time, and they push and they push hard on this. So she agrees. She was like, okay, because she wants to see what the big deal is. And I'll tell you right now, she's a well put together person and she's a happy person. She doesn't need to talk to a psychiatrist. All right. So, first of all, you don't actually talk to a psychiatrist anymore. It's all Zoom. It's all Zoom bullshit. So she's on with this woman, this psychoanalyst, whatever the hell she is. And she sits there and does her confirmation, and then she's ready to write prescriptions. And my wife is like, what are we writing a prescription for? Why do you want to write a prescription? Why don't you think you need a prescription? What's the problem? Why are we even here? Well, because you have a doctor's referral. Why did the doctor refer me to you? Well, I'm not sure. You'll have to take that up with your doctor. Okay, so we got a referral. The doctor doesn't have a reason for referring you other than that's just what they do at the VA. The psychiatrist, psychologist, I can't remember which one it was, doesn't know why this person was referred. Oh, but we're writing scripts. I'm not taking any medication. Why not? You have a problem with medication? What is your problem with medication? I'm not exaggerating. This person got very angry. Okay. I'll have you know right now, the VA is not in the habit of doing things that might hurt their clients. Do you understand me? And my wife is like, hey, you know what? We're done. We're done with this conversation. Think about that. Why are you angry? Why are you defensive? Oh, the VA wouldn't do anything to hurt people? Are you shitting me? I remember a documentary, and don't ask me the name of it because I don't remember. I saw this documentary in the 90s. It was, but it stuck in my mind because of what was being discussed. Former Vietnam vets, okay? And they were in a recovery center, and it was a recovery center that was detached from the VA. They went there to detox from the VA. And one of the things that was interesting that really stood out for me about the facility were the barrels. Outside of the facility in the back, they had these 55-gallon drums, like dozens of them, and they were filled to the top with pill bottles. And this is the ritual. When you come there to detox from all the psych meds and all the bullshit and all the bad therapy, you bring your meds and you throw them all into one of the barrels. And the guy who's running the facility was like, this is what I want you to do. Try to look any of this shit up. Talking to the people, I think it was 2020 that was doing it. It was 2020, 60 Minutes, somebody like this. Try to look up any of these meds. I can't identify them. It's all experimental stuff. Who knows what they're doing to these guys? Oh, but we trust them. We got to trust. We got to trust them. Unknown Knows says the trope of mad scientists in fiction is directly inspired by actual cases. No kidding. No kidding. I believe that. And Brian says, of course, she's happy she has you. Well, thank you, Brian. We are happy together. And Urban Angst is here. You made it. Yes, you did. Hopefully, you didn't get hung up on your notification or whatever. You see my torn shirt? This is what happens when you work in the yard. But I thought that was very bizarre, that entire thing. And I wonder how many people get referrals, because for near as I understand, people that I've talked to that go to VA, everybody gets a referral to talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. For what? So they can write prescriptions? Because she was ready to write prescriptions. What are you writing prescriptions for? Can't tell you what it's for because they don't know why you're there. The woman didn't know why she was there, except that she had a referral. Doctor gave a referral because that's what they do. It doesn't make sense. And I think it's dangerous and irresponsible. Fluke Man says, because the psychiatrist is a member of the project to test new drugs or bonuses. Yeah. And Unknown Knows says there was a VA that had a multi-million-dollar indoor pool built, barely used it. then drained it and used it to store office furniture. There's a photo documentation. Wow. What a waste. What a waste of your money, which is what that is, your money. And of course, you should never trust pharmaceuticals. You should be very careful and very aware and ask a lot of questions. You don't know what this stuff's going to do. And she has a bad history with that because of her parents. I mean, some of you saw the video that I did with her mother's medications before she was hospitalized. What, 32, I believe it was, 32 different medications? It's insane. It's no wonder she had a stroke. Her brother, who became a quadriplegic from a vaccination, she's going to trust these people? Plus, remember, we both worked in mental health, and we've seen firsthand what it does to people. The vegetables we had to work with, it's sad. WCM says pharma pushers. No kidding. And she got so angry. This person is like, where's your composure? You're a doctor? You went through 8-10 years of medical school so that you can shit yourself on a Zoom call because somebody had the nerve to question your authority. Seriously? You're going to lose your shit on a Zoom call and start practically yelling, getting aggressive language, confrontational with my wife. And she was like, my wife is like, I won't make that mistake again. I'm not listening to another damn referral. She's been ignoring it forever, but she was just curious. She was just curious this time, and this is what it led to. Sven says the VA doesn't care. They're paying for illegals' health care. That is true. And Nature Nerd says, instead of talking through problems and taking action, just prescribe a pill with random side effects. Exactly. That's exactly what they do. That's exactly what they do. And you all know, I've mentioned it. It's been a while, but Morita therapy, Morita, Morita therapy, which is a Japanese approach to psychological disorders that does not use medication. Their idea is that, if you're depressed or some other issues like that, aside from actual mental illness, most issues can be fixed with a reset. So the therapy involves unplugging yourself from media, no radios, no TV, no phone, simplified diet, a vegetarian diet to clean out your system, doing a hobby of, doing exercise, natural exercise. They got people chopping wood and things like this and building, doing painting and simple constructs to basically cleanse their mind and get reset. They believe that maybe you have toxic friends. Maybe you ought to evaluate some of them and decide if there's some people you don't need to be around. Maybe your job is just not good for you and it's just crushing your spirit. Natural things that make sense, not a freaking pill. Joshua says they once expressed concern about giving olanzapine to someone who was having mental health issues. The response I was given was, "Are you a doctor?" I guess critical thinking isn't allowed. No. Are you a doctor? Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I'm also not a mechanic, and I know how to drive a car. I'm not a carpenter, and I know how to live in a house. Okay. Urban Angst says at this point, most MDs are no better than pharmaco reps. They spend more time trying CYA notes on their typing CYA notes on their laptop instead of listening to what the patient is telling them. No kidding. And WCM says population control. And then Cyberjack Senior says, no, that makes too much sense. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But yeah, I don't trust these people, especially after having worked with them when my wife and I were working in the mental health facility. Backstabbing, angry nurses who could barely do their jobs, arguing with patients. You're going to argue with somebody who's severely mentally ill that has an IQ of like a Doberman Pinscher. You really think your argument's going anywhere? Why are you yelling at this person? It doesn't make any sense. Pediatricians are not pediatricians, but yeah, I have issues with pediatricians too, but general practitioners. You all know the story about my argument with where polio comes from when they were trying to get on me about not taking the jab. It's insane. You can't trust anybody. Anyways, with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and begin signing off here. You are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind finding me there, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. Glad you could make it. Special thanks to Robert, who made a donation to the GoFundMe link. Much appreciated. And again, hope everybody got something out of the conversation. And we'll go ahead and sign off and do